Welcome to a new episode of Pulse, and today's guest is Vijita Patel, the Executive Director of Special Schools and SEN Services for Pre-University Education at the Qatar Foundation. Vijita is a global leader in inclusive education, working at the intersection of technology, neuroscience, and learning to create environments where every student can thrive. Vijita is helping pioneer initiatives that support neurodiverse learners responsibly integrate AI into classrooms and bridge cultural heritage with future-focused education. In this conversation, we explore how innovation, ethics, and human connection can come together to shape the next generation of learning. Hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Vijita Patel. Day 2 of WISE 12, another glorious day, loads of exciting people to see and to discover, and my next guest is no exception. Ms. Vijita Patel, Executive Director of the Pre-University Department at the Qatar Foundation with a specific emphasis on special needs. Hope I did that correctly in the intro.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here in Doha, and it's always such a pleasure every 2 years to talk to so many energetic, dynamic, vibrant people. And before we clicked record, you shared already 2-3 programs that are ongoing at the Qatar Foundation under your leadership. How are you feeling today, and how are you feeling about WISE?
Feeling completely energized when you get into conversation with delegates and the international perspectives that come together. What I find really reassuring is that all the momentum is moving in the right direction. Yeah. Everyone's burning question that they're trying to explore, get into conversation around, debates, dialogues. It is coming back to that human element. How do we make sure that we can support that human flourish for the incredible society that we serve, as we also embrace the potential of technology and the reality, as Mo Badat reminded us yesterday, it's here. That is not going to get reversed. So how do we get to be able to feel our sort of ownership and agency with that? I've been totally inspired by the colleagues I've been able to speak to from a number of countries, number of organizations.
Yeah, it's really about the symbiosis between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. I hear loads of optimism, but I also hear loads of caution, right? So, but I was happy to hear, because you are looking into special needs, and you yourself, but also your colleagues said, like, technology is really helping us, in addressing certain things our students, our children are struggling with on a special needs level. And you're about to introduce a very exciting program, a very exciting example of that, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I should say, for our students, they're trying to fit into the norms, the way that education may be designed, learning designed, the way that society interacts. And we've been able to flip that narrative to say they may be pre-verbal, the way they may conceptualize the world is from a unique angle. How does the technology actually meet them at that point? How can technology give them a voice? Does it allow them to be able to engage with the learning and be able to take those next developmental steps? But equally, how is it supporting that student engagement and empowerment in the classroom in a way that's not forcing them to learn to the norms, the way that the majority may learn, because neurodiversity has so much to be celebrated, and the way that we can have technology really embrace and amplify that, we've found that it's absolutely powerful.
I'm going to challenge you because I want to hear about good examples, but I can imagine there are also cases where it didn't play out the way you thought. So, right, you're looking into those things. Can we start with a good example whereby you said, here was a technological tool that we applied for neurodiverse students, and here's how they flourished. And then I would like to also address maybe one that wasn't so successful. Yeah.
So a great initiative we have in place at the moment. We're launching a partnership with Qatar Foundation and the Lusail International Circuit. This is going to be launched this weekend at the F1 competition. And we were really inspired because Lusail wanted to really think deeply about their accessibility and inclusive strategy. And so they worked with the expertise within our special schools to be able to design a sensory room and a sensory sanctuary to be able to promote that access and engagement with the F1 race. the technology that has been placed into those spaces that are for use for any participant, any member of the race. It's actually the technology itself is quite simple. It supports that regulation. It allows that calm engagement with what is a very high, hypersensitive, hypersensory, overstimulating environment. But that technology and the design of that has come from what has been best practice within our classrooms. And that's reflected internationally with the research base. And what's fantastic in that example is the role of that technology, the way that that's being modeled now in society. It's not within the classrooms. It is something that our students are able to recognize and see within their community, within forward-thinking organizations that want to be able to have that very consistent, positive, effective approach within where their important sort of user group will be in their organizations. So for this example, the design of a sensory sanctuary to be able to view the race from the pit lane, the integration of various technology devices that will support that regulation, engagement, and then observation of the race, which is a fascination and interest for so many students that may have neurodiverse profiles. Being able to take the expertise that teachers and specialists have confirmed its impact within the classroom and applying that beyond the school and educational experience. I feel it's a sign that if we harness technology through what our vision is for that, what its purpose is for ensuring that we have clarity on what its role is and how it will be fundamental to be able to engage and empower a child or young person, we're able to think about technology's role for us versus the way that we're adopting and becoming consumers.
And so how do you measure the outcome? So this F1 race is about to begin. How do you ensure that, retrospectively you say, okay, we can do this again? How do you measure the outcomes of all of this?
When we go into formal partnerships, these sort of relationships, what's very important for us is that we're able to actually bring that into the partnership agreements. So we're really thinking with Lucille, they want to also have this used across the year. They want to be a very inclusive, accessible circuit. We want to make sure that we're equipping them to be able to also have that 360 lens on what worked well, what will the next step be, how do we support them. And that's where the partnership is very dynamic, very active. It's not simply about the launch of the initiative, it's actually how we learn from that to be able to take those next steps. So the staff teams from our special schools are actually hosting both spaces. We're supporting the capacity building of volunteers to know how to support those who may need that access to a sensory sanctuary. And so we're also building a team that's built around core values, but clarity on the evidence-informed practices versus a sort of experiential option that may not be used to its fullest potential.
So let's go back to the cases where we had the expectation that technology was going to help us so much, maybe also for special needs students, but where it didn't play out the way we thought it would. For example, earlier I spoke to the executive director of Everyone.ai, and she's, very cautious about artificial intelligence and the brain development of people aged 0 to 25 years old, because their brain is still in development. If they start, for instance, building a relationship with an AI tool, and there are certain technology tools out there that advocate for that, like a teddy bear that has ChatGPT inside or something, so that a child starts thinking it can build a relationship with it. So that is, for me, an example of something scary and something that we should nurture people to build relationships with other people, maybe less so with AI tools, right? Just to give an example. Do you have, in your experience, any examples that you said, well, this played out very differently than we thought it would?
I would say for us, because everything has to be led by what are the guiding principles for the technology we're going to be very mindful of. Qatar Foundation for University Education, I may be speaking about neurodiverse and SEN profiles, but we have quite an ecosystem of schools. Whichever school you're interacting with, we have an initial consideration on what is the purpose of this? What will this enhance or be a tool for the student and for that learning experience? And how does it enable the educator's approach for pedagogy, for their curriculum design, for that innovation? We don't want it to simply enter the classroom in a way that is going to take away from the vision for learning. Coming back to that example you shared, tech innovation is the momentum is
Yeah.
hard to keep up, and the development's phenomenal. Can also be, I agree
Yeah.
with that perspective that there can be great risk, ethical and moral considerations as
Yeah.
well. What's very important for us is taking the standpoint, how do we make sure that the child, the students, that social peer collaboration is one that has a real human level to it. And in the area of neurodiversity and special needs, this has been a priority pre this entire tech boom.
Yeah.
So it's been a focus to ensure that
Already
there's
for a
an
long time.
engagement
Yeah.
and involvement. So for us, what's very important is now that guiding principle, that core principle and philosophy that has shaped our curriculum, our educational system. Technology is a part of that conversation,
Yeah.
but it's not the driver.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's true for the QF ecosystem
Yeah.
as well.
I think you're saying you do loads of vetting before you adopt something. You don't try things out and then see. And of course, for good reason, because we are dealing, of course, with a very fragile group of students, and you kind of want to see clear evidence and clear results, good research that shows this is indeed something that we can use and push forward.
And that vetting,
Yeah.
the technology's sort of metrics, I think, comes at the end.
Yeah.
Initially, core values,
Yeah.
the ethical and sort of moral guidelines that
Yeah.
we have within our framework are quite
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And when we think about AI, there's so much in terms of the way that we're able to ensure that when we're considering that, whether it's a neurodiverse profile or a student that does not have additional needs, we know that in this digital society, the 360 for a student, their profile can change over time. So how are we being very mindful that the technology that we might utilize is going to be robust and also adaptive to any journey the child may be on? That example of sort of that vetting process, that's a great terminology.
Yeah.
For us, what we don't want is it to feel like we're bridging or addressing a barrier.
Yeah.
Neurodiversity, we want to celebrate that. There's such a unique perspective, the way that they view the world, the way
Yeah.
that they're processing information. I wouldn't even say they're a separate group. They're a child, they're a young person. And then the neurodiverse aspect is a part of their identity. And we are incredibly privileged to be trusted to support them to get a sense of self, identity, their confidence in who they are, not to feel that neurodiverse or special needs context is deficient. And for us, where can technology allow them to feel that empowerment? And you can go to our classrooms in any school across Qatar Foundation, and the role of the technology is never replacing or adjusting a barrier. It's always allowing the student to have that agency for that next step.
Yeah.
Very importantly.
If you were to allow me, let's talk about you, but also about the Qatar Foundation, because I received your bio, which is quite impressive. You've been in many places over the world, UK as well. What drove you to the Qatar Foundation? And I would also like to talk a little bit about the Qatar Foundation and its impact on education globally, because there are so many programs and I think not a lot of people are aware. Of course, we're here at WISE, which is also of the Qatar Foundation, but there are so many kind of overlaps, and I just want people to get to know the Qatar Foundation a little bit. So what was your introduction to the Qatar Foundation?
I've had the privilege of getting to know the Qatar Foundation across the last 6 years. And I think what's absolutely powerful, truly the vision of human potential and the responsibility for a knowledge economy versus one that is led by that sort of fiscal reality. Qatar Foundation is so committed to this mission where education can hold the key to making society stronger, but also the power of research and innovation.
Yeah.
And the ecosystem, there is the key sort of entities within Qatar Foundation, but a really strong commitment to meaningful partnerships. And those partnerships are those that are sharing that commitment for this mission, where we can make society stronger, but also one where we're preserving the heritage and the culture of this region alongside equipping our students to be global citizens that will be the change makers that are taking on societal challenges to be able to put, the future in the best position possible.
Yeah.
That sounds so broad, but when you get to know Qatar Foundation, I think it's really important to emphasize the education city model, the approach for pre-university education, higher education, the research, innovation, education development institute. There's so many aspects of the ecosystem that truly meet every child at their point of learning, educator in a way that allows them to be able to realize the agency and ownership they have on designing learning. But the evidence and research base that underpins that. And what's fantastic, if you're able to take some time to go through Education City, you come across so many views, powerful sort of sense of open conversation, professional dialogue. But I think what's really important is Qatar Foundation is promoting that conversation, promoting that discussion and dialogue. And that starts at the earliest point of education. So how do we help those formative years nurture that sense of confidence, clarity, and ownership on having a very important perspective?
And with you, who has done all, you've worked in many settings in education, and not only in Qatar. So is it unique? Would you say it is unique, and different to what you've done or seen before?
Well, it's very unique. And what I find quite inspiring is that, there's public-private partnership. So that's what the Ministry of Education, the foundation views its role in terms of the region, the nation. This is not simply about those who may be within the QF, Qatar Foundation sort of ecosystem itself. And holding that collective responsibility to be able to say that we embrace this and we're very values-led, to be able to make sure that we're bringing our expertise, wisdom, knowledge, or values to that responsibility. I think that is what makes it so unique. And very importantly, every member of the Qatar Foundation, for university education end of that ecosystem, we can feel ourselves a part of this movement, this momentum, and you can certainly see that in the evidence base. WISE is fantastic. You've got so much research that's sitting and available to be able to underpin why this is the design of WISE. This is why we're bringing you this curated program. But how does that equip you, wherever you may come from, to be able to say, I am now equipped on how I'm going to be able to take that research base, this dialogue, this debate, and strengthen the education or sort of national system back?
That's fascinating. And what I think, because I did a tour of Education City, for instance, and I went to Qatar National Library, Northwestern University, the beautiful mosque at Hamad bin Khalifa University. Oh, absolutely beautiful people, very friendly, very exquisite in kind of their knowledge and their willingness to share and to exchange. WISE is also testimony to that. So I definitely think it will have a tremendous ripple effect across the world, right? And which is very much what I like, because of course it's it's in Qatar, and but it's not as Qatar centric as you would think it is, right? There's loads of learnings that are shared with the world, as you say. Well, at the same time, of course, people in Qatar benefit from this.
What's fantastic is the WISE Summit itself. Her Highness, provided us with this very thought provocation through her vision that we really need to realize that it takes all of us to be able to ensure that the human commitment in this time of technological advancement is one that we're all embracing. Qatar Foundation is placing so much consideration around that. Wherever a colleague may come from, there is a way for them to interact with the research-based best practice, knowledge exchange, professional learning communities, connections to families, to the students, to wider community. Really, it's about the way that we're taking, have the conviction to take our responsibility for that. Everybody's empowered. It's our agency to be able to do so when it's connected through core values, vision, like what we heard yesterday. The momentum can only go in the right direction.
100%.
And it supports that growth mindset is there, the open mindset to be able to really think about how we can design 21st century education, how we can interact with AI in a way that is going to enable that sense of human-led technology. There's a greater number of us on that mission, and we're almost able to have a shared responsibility in the way that we're interacting with, as you described, certain risks that could come with the AI, but in enough sense that they're colleagues that we've connected with through a summit like WISE, not simply through our own sort of known networks, but the network that develops through it.
There's a lot there. What I kind of get from this event is like, we shouldn't be deflated. It's there for us. Let's embrace it. Let's work on it. Let's do it together. And we shouldn't be scared of it. I think the previous WISE for me was a lot about it's coming, what's happening, where should we look, and now it's really like, no, it's there. but we can do something about it. We can engage. Let's take it on. It's going to do good things, but we need to be there for it. I think if anything, people say is like, it's a mistake not to engage, right? Not to embrace technology and AI, but be cautious at the same time and realize that it's there to serve us, not the other way around, right? Those are very interesting bits and pieces. And I'm sure our learnings are going to kick in only when we go away. But, this is like always such a good hub of ideas, right? You're very busy. So you have loads of programs that you're working on. Before we hit record, you spoke about endeavors in inclusive education, a knowledge exchange panel, more parental engagement. So all three different programs. Is there one that our listeners who are listening from all over the world should take a look at, one that you would advise? And we'll be sure to include any relevant links in our show notes as well as literature. Any of these programs that deserves a specific call out?
I would highlight the entire ecosystem always,
Yeah.
because I think what's important is there's such a relationship between the way it's designed and how it increases the impact level. But if I were to highlight two, one is we have an Education Development Institute, and the EDI does a combination. It's within our school system and the pre-university education side of the Qatar Foundation. And they've brought a combination of thought leaders that provide sort of stimulus for educators, formal training, championing the expertise that's within our schools, professional learning communities that is promoting that professional dialogue. But very importantly, they're always able to bring the research base in a way that is equipping educators to think about inclusion, neurodiversity, and those next steps. Alongside that, we have a new initiative that is focusing on strengthening the voice and the perspective of our parents of children with special needs. So we have special schools. We also have mainstream schools. And it'd be great to shine a light on the special parents. They have a PTA. And, it's absolutely inspiring when I hear about it, that it is our parents stating what they want, how they want to take that ownership, and the colleagues within Qatar Foundation being their vehicle, their tool to be able to take those next steps. And then within Qatar Foundation, pre-university education, a big focus on preserving localization of our curriculum, being able to preserve Islamic heritage, Arabic language. We've got a very progressive education system. How do our students see themselves in terms of their identity alongside that global picture? And the RASEC program is one that I would highlight as well for colleagues across the region. But wherever we may be internationally, this is a dilemma that everyone is facing. So actually, Qatar Foundation has created quite a powerful model, bringing research entities, universities through the Education Development Institute to be able to create curricula and to be able to create a program that is then really allowing us to equip our students to have great sense and understanding of heritage, actually informing future. And which you would have felt at the Qatar National Library. Archives,
beautiful below,
really defining the foundation. Then you have this design where literature...
It's in its foundations as well, beautiful.
And the program reflects that as well.
Wonderful. Well, so much things to talk about, so much work to do for you. My very two last questions. Is there, because you've traveled extensively, you've contributed so much to education, special needs. In your journey, has there been any reading that has really inspired you on your journey? And maybe a type of reading that someone who's maybe thinking of advancing in their career in the way you do, that you would recommend them?
About twofold. One is a professor that his research is very accessible. So this is Professor Barry Carpenter, works internationally as well. And he summarizes it really well. He says it's a new generation of children that do not fit into the traditional labels of special needs. And whenever I speak to educators internationally, it is so clear that the traditional models, even for inclusive education, are evolving. And we're at a time now where we've got this powerful research base, but very importantly, the research is coming from the educators themselves. They are holding such a perspective on how to think about learning design, curriculum innovations, personalized learning at the time of technological advancements. So Professor Barry Carpenter is one that I would recommend. And then my second would be, very importantly, I always find that it's very inspiring to find the local parents group to be able to sit with them and to be able to understand what their views of inclusion are. Do we share the same definition, or is there actually a priority that we could be working on together?
Make sure you're aligned.
And I found that 10 times out of 10, the parents, of course, are the experts of their child. The dilemmas that they're interacting with are always related to their vision for their child, to be equal members of society, to feel that access and inclusion. And when we change our approach to align our educational models to what the family needs as well, that preparation for adulthood, the way that they'll be able to be very active participants in society, I find that very important, vital, but it's an important reminder for us as educators and leaders in education, for the systems, that, we are not alone. That collaboration is not simply in our professional sphere. And it's been great to see parents attending ones.
I was just speaking to some. It's great. Yeah. But there's no reading there. It's more like engage with other parents. Could look for parent groups or
a great piece of writing. David Mitchell, who's a parent of a son with autism. And his book, I recommend to everybody. And it's very powerful. And it also reminds us, let's look at the world through their eyes versus trying to ask these incredible neurodiverse profiles to view it through ours. So David Mitchell's book, absolutely.
Nice. And then for my very last question, and I ask every single guest on my podcast, do you have a morning routine? And if so, would you care to share?
I do, actually. So this is going to sound very interesting. I really enjoy neuroscience of learning and sort of the way the brain works. So when I wake up, I will go outside and I will look in the direction of the sun, and I will take in the sun for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I learned this from Huberman.
Andrew Huberman.
Huberman, and did a little bit of research for myself. And I must say, what it does for me to be able to think about my goals for the day, but also for me to be able to really feel anchored and the way that I'm able to invest in my sense of, it all comes back to the theme. The mobile phone is our computer at home, and it's on our body, and we are just living with work 24/7. But we can control the balance and the well-being, receiving. And when I think about our students, their unique metacognition and the way that they process information, that morning routine, I recommend to all.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one. So 10 minutes facing the sun, and then just anchor yourself.
The neuroscience of that and what it's doing to be able to actually wake up the body. And so I'm not starting the day tired. She's starting the day with a very clear sort of
mission.
And momentum is there for everything the day is going to bring.
Nice. Well, that's a wonderful tip, and thank you for sharing it. And thank you for this interview. I'm sure we're going to hear loads more about your program, and I wish you all the best at the Qatar Foundation. Vijita Patel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've listened to Pulse by Alpha Wire, produced by Natalie Piles and Amela Faisal, with great music, The Optimist, written by Holly Hamill, performed and produced by ALO. Episodes hosted weekly by me, Aldo de Pape.